Hello there. I'm Robert McKay. As you know, if you've watched many of the videos on this channel, past few days I can't talk. It doesn't matter if I'm on camera or off, if it's morning, noon, or night, my tongue gets tangled in my teeth. If you've watched many of my videos, you already know I'm Robert McKay, and of course you just saw the name of the channel and the fact that it's a thoroughly amateur production. And of course you could figure that out just from what you're seeing. The other day I uploaded a review of Smoke Wagon small batch bourbon, and I mentioned that I prefer the Desert Colt from small batch. Guess what I'm going to review now? Excuse me. And I had been thinking that I could do some blinds on the channel. Hadn't done that before, but I might could do it. And I hadn't mentioned it, but I got a comment on that review of the Smoke Wagon small batch that I ought to blind the two. And I said, well, I've been thinking about it. Might as well start with this as anything. So before I come in here to record, I poured me a couple of samples. I poured about half into a regular size Boston bottle, and I'll leave them in there until I don't remember which is in which bottle. I have noted it, and I will look that up at the appropriate time. But as I'm a tasting, I'll know it's Smoke Wagon. It'll only be single blind, but I won't know which one is in which glass. Meantime, let's pour some of this here Desert Colt. Well, that's my left foot. They ain't but one of us a-pouring, and I don't have a professional setup, thoroughly amateur, but it's better than it was, and it's very much better than it used to be. Now this is going to be a review. I don't believe I've explicitly mentioned that yet, although you might have picked it up from what I said. So let me give you some information off the bottle. I don't research these video reviews. One of the reasons I'm doing exclusively video reviews now is I just got tired of the research. One reason. There are others. But this is it's a cast strength, barrel proof, and this particular bottle is 57.29% alcohol by volume, which comes to 114.58% if I'm doing the math right in my head. I know I've got the 114 right. It's the decimal that I'm not certain of. Non-chill filtered, no water added ever. So this bottle is uncut and unfiltered. Now Smoke Wagon has an expression that they call uncut unfiltered. And there's one, I think they call it uncut the younger, something the younger. But this is uncut unfiltered. It's considerably cheaper than the one that calls itself uncut unfiltered. This I got at Kelly Liquors on the 20th of October, and it only cost me $42.99, 43 bucks. It is, of course, bourbon, which means it's at least 51% corn. I don't have the mash bill. Again, I don't look that stuff up anymore. If it has it on the bottle, fine, I'll read it to you. If it doesn't, I don't trouble my head about it. It's distilled in Indiana, so it's from the MGP distillery, but they age it and bottle it in Nevada. The company, what's the name of it exactly? Well, shoot far. Nevada H&C Distilling Company, Las Vegas, Nevada. The H&C is the initials of the founders, and I don't remember what they are. And I don't mean to be crude, rude, and uncouth, although I'm good at it without even trying. I don't mean to be condescending, but anything you want to know about this that I don't mention here in the video, you can look up just as easy as I can. And so some things I just don't bother with. I leave them as an exercise for the student. And if you're new to whiskey, you're likely doing as I did when I was new, just looking up everything that comes to mind. Is there anything else I want to tell you? It has the flavor notes that they get on the back label. And I like the label on this. It's a nice old-timey label. And I like the bottle. If you've seen the review of the small batch, you'll remember it's a brown glass bottle, and it's hard to see the level of the whiskey. Here, it's easy because it's clear glass. I much prefer clear glass. So, first thing I go for here is the nose. It's a very distinctive nose. It's a dense and emphatic and bold nose. Offhand, it smells like bourbon, but not like any other bourbon. It smells like itself. There's kind of maybe a minty note underneath everything else. I'm getting the caramel and brown sugar and cinnamon so thoroughly mixed together, it's almost impossible to pick out the individual things. They're coming together in one condensed bourbon note. And it's not an infallible rule, but a good rule of thumb is that the more complex a whiskey is, the more trouble you might have in picking out individual notes because there's so much there. It's like, well, I was going to say a symphony orchestra, but I don't know classical music. It bores me. I can hear that it takes skill to write it and to play it, but it bores me. So let's take a jazz big band. Say Benny, my brain went blank. Benny Goodman's band. When he was playing Sing, Sing, Sing with a Swing. It starts off with Gene Krupa pounding them drums, but then the whole band comes in. You can hear brass, but can you distinguish one trumpet from another? You can hear Benny's clarinet at different places, but can you hear any other clarinets there might be? It's a blast of sound, and it's a beautiful song. I love it. Or Duke Ellington's song, Jeep's Blues. And as far as I know, the only recording of that one is when he played Newport, Rhode Island, the Newport Jazz Festival in '57, I think it was. And that was the same gig where Paul Gonsalves blew for like 24 choruses on, I think it was Diminuendo and Crescendo in Blue. He just blew and blew and blew, and that's one of the classic big band jazz solos. And there are people I know who have proficient enough ear, they can listen and they can pick out individual instruments. I can't do it, and most jazz listeners can't, I'm sure. And I'm having trouble picking out individual notes on this nose. A little bit maybe of apple. Something is astringent in there, not unpleasantly so, but it's puzzling me as to what it might be. Because astringent notes are generally not pleasant, and I don't know that I've ever got one before. I know what I'm getting. I'm getting orange peel. When you tear the orange peel and you sniff it, it's that orangey but slightly bitter smell. That's what I'm getting here. That may be what people mean by orange zest, although as I understand it, I'm not a cook or anything like thereunto. The zest is the white from the inside of the rind. And when I was a kid, I used to take my teeth and scrape that off, but you have to be careful not to scrape too deep, or you get into the peel itself, and that don't taste good. But that's what I'm getting, or not orange, lemon. It's like lemon peel. If you tear a lemon peel, it's got that lemonness to it. Yeah, that's what I'm a-getting. And it's a surprising thing. At different times, from different whiskeys, I've got like a lemon cough drop note on the palate. I've never got this lemon before on the nose. And as you can see, I've been drinking on this some. And palates change, whiskey changes. And so it just so happens that in this review for the first time, I'm getting that lemoniness on the nose. And it's a surprise to me. But I'm going to go for the mouthfeel now. It's a smooth mouthfeel. I wouldn't expect anything less from 114 plus whiskey, but for me, 114 is not exceptionally high proof. So I'm getting the viscosity I would expect, nothing more but nothing less either. It's a good viscosity. If you're new to whiskey, this is probably not going to be for you precisely because of that proof. If you're new to whiskey, you may still be having fun dealing with 80 proof. And that's okay. When you're just getting started, you're not used to that level of alcohol, unless you've previously been drinking other distilled spirits, and a lot of whiskey newbies haven't. That's definitely lemon peel in there. Whew. Just like the small batch did me, before I can start talking, the alcohol kicks in after a swallow and I open my mouth and breathe. Tip of my tongue, alcohol. But I was getting cinnamon and brown sugar, and there was another note that has slipped me because it took me so long to begin telling you about the palate. So let me take another sip. Come back to me. There's something fruity in there. I'm not sure whether it's citrus or along the lines of apples or pears or what, but there's something fruity in there. along with the cinnamon and the brown sugar, and those are typical bourbon notes. There's an oakiness in there, and I didn't really notice it till I was telling you what I was getting. And I'm going to get to the finish. I'll describe that to you. But it was the finish that reminded me of it. I keep a sniffing because taste and smell have such a close relationship that oftentimes after you sip the whiskey a few times, you're going to get a few more notes on the nose, and as you keep on nosing it, you'll get a few more notes on the palate. Doesn't always happen, but pretty often it does. Yeah, there's an orange coming in. You'll remember I said it wasn't orange peel but lemon peel, but now there's an orange coming in, not the peel but the fruit itself. And it's just a little faint note sliding in underneath. And I would expect that an uncut, unfiltered whiskey would be fairly complex if it has any kind of age on it at all, and if it has any kind of proof on it at all. And the reason for that is that when you cut the whiskey, when you temper it, when you proof it down, you're adding water to it to reduce the alcohol percentage and increase the water percentage. But that also waters down what they call congeners, the compounds, the chemicals that create the flavor. Pure alcohol has little or no flavor. It's other elements in there which give it the flavor. So when you water it down, you're not just watering down the strength, you're watering down the flavor as well. Now, some whiskeys can take that. And there are some, if you add just a couple of drops of water to what's in the glass, the whole thing collapses and it just is whiskey flavored water. And then filtering it, chill filtering, they bring the whiskey down to, I think it's 40 degrees, maybe a little bit under. And then they run it through a filter to remove cloudiness at a cold temperature. The trouble is, what causes the cloudiness is those flavor compounds which condense out at the cold temperature. And so a chill filtered whiskey, and I've never been able to detect the difference, but it can have less flavor. So uncut, unfiltered has all the flavor in it that it had when it was in the barrel. And that is likely to be a complex whiskey if it has any proof or any age at all. On that sip, there was this vanilla wave that just come crashing down on my tongue in addition to everything else. And whiskey will do that. As you go through the bottle, it'll change. As you go through a glass, it'll change. Some people, they pour a whiskey and then they let it sit 15-20 minutes before they start sipping on it, precisely because as it interacts with the air, it can change. Now, I don't like to do that unless I'm seeing what will happen if it just sets, because I like to experience the change. I like to start off with a sip that's doing this, this, and this, and then as it goes on, find out it's leaving off the first this, but it's adding another this over here, so it's this, this, this. It can be really interesting to pay attention to a glass of whiskey over the course of an hour or 2 hours. And obviously, I am not talking about doing shots. If that's why you're buying whiskey, don't get this stuff. It'd be a waste of your money. Just go buy Everclear, slam the shots back. You're not drinking for the taste anyways. If that's what you're doing, I don't even know why you are watching this video or any other video on this channel. but it can be so interesting to watch a whiskey evolve over the time it takes you to drink it, or over the time it takes to go through the bottle. Now, I'm a bourbon guy. I don't often drink Scottish whiskey or any other non-bourbon whiskey, and when I do, it's usually rye or corn whiskey. But I love Laphroaig 10 year. Now, it's a peated Scotch, and so if you don't like peat, you will not like Laphroaig. It has that very distinctive Band-Aid note on the nose and the palate. But underneath it, there's this delightful fruity whiskey. Only thing that's ever given me a pineapple note on the palate. And I swear, every bottle of Laphroaig I've had, every glass was just a tad bit different. So that over the course of however many glasses, I had that many slightly different experiences. Most whiskey doesn't change that distinctly, but the Laphroaig does. And all whiskey is going to change over time. It's not going bad. And as long as you store it properly, it won't. But it does change. On the finish, the alcohol scorch is gone, but I got an oaky oranginess from about the middle of my tongue back, and it's just a setting there. And now up towards the front of my mouth, I'm starting to get oak metamorphosing into chocolate, and that's what oak usually does for me. It usually turns into chocolate on my tongue or in my mouth. And oak often gives me a sensation of a graininess, and tonight it's a very fine grain, like if you could take the oak and the chocolate and grind it into powder and mix just a little in with the liquid. It's not unpleasant. It sounds like it would be, but it's not. Yeah, now there's a little bit of alcohol on the tip of my tongue. When I'm going for flavor notes, I hold it in my mouth and move it around and try to get it onto all the surfaces of my mouth. When I'm going for the finish, I swallow it quicker so that it will have more impact after it's gone. And I'm getting a hug now right through here. Tain't a Kentucky hug, not on whiskey that they made in Indiana and aged and bottled in Nevada. Tain't no Kentucky hug, but it's a hug, and that's the heat of the alcohol going down your throat and your esophagus and whatever they call it when it gets down in the bottom. Maybe it's still the esophagus. If all it took to be a doctor was bad handwriting, I'd be a doctor about 40 times over. But you have to have anatomical knowledge, and you have to know the pharmacopoeia, and you have to know so many things. And these days, it's kind of hard, I guess, to be a general practitioner, a GP, because there is so much knowledge involved that you almost have to specialize and be an oncologist or a pediatrician or a podiatrist or what have you. You can be a surgeon, and if you're a surgeon in the UK, you are not doctor. You may have gone through the same training as the doctor does, but surgeons are Mr. So-and-so. And the physicians who refer you to the surgeon are doctor. Sometimes British traditions make about as much sense as a 42-legged snake. It's definitely an oaky finish, but as long as it's not too bitter, I like an oaky finish. And if it turns into chocolate, as this is somewhat doing, I really like an oaky finish. So, let's summarize this puppy dog. I do indeed like it better than the small batch. The small batch is good. This is better. It's like, Dale Earnhardt, when he was still alive, he used to say that second place in a race was first place loser. He did not consider anything other than first place worth fighting for. Although the day he died, he was staying in third place, blocking the field so that his son, Junior Earnhardt, who was in second, and his friend and employee, Mikey Waltrip, who was in first, could go on and get first and second in the 2001 Daytona 500. People had a lot of bad things to say about Dale Earnhardt when he was alive. Once he died, he was a saint. Nobody says anything against him. But when he walked out during driver introductions in that last race, they booed him. People booed Dale Earnhardt because he was the intimidator. He went out there. He wasn't going to settle for second if he could at all help it. He was going to go for first, and if he had to move you to do it, he'd move you. I believe it was Terry Labonte. I believe it was at Bristol. I'm not certain of them two things. But he bumped a driver, bumped the car to get by in a race, and the other driver spun and wrecked. Well, that's bumping and banging. That's how stock car racing was from the very beginning. But afterwards, Dale said, I didn't mean to wreck him. I just wanted to rattle his cage. And usually that's what happened. He just moved you. But despite Dale Earnhardt's views on second place, the fact is, if you're second place in a cup race, you are one of the best stock car drivers in the world. Just to be in the race means you are one of the 40 or 43 best stock car drivers in the entire world. It's just that the guy who wins is better, at least on that day, than the guy who comes in second. But the guy who comes in 43rd, you move him down into a lower series, the truck series, or I still think of it as the Bush series, but that's not what it is anymore. And he will be one of the dominating drivers amongst those younger, less experienced, less talented drivers. Because he is not bad, he's just not as good as the guy who won. So the small batch is not bad at all. It's good whiskey. But this is better. And I will buy it again. And I just realized I'm coming up on half an hour, and I did not intend it, although my reviews do tend to take longer. I would give this, I think I'm going to give it on my Hicks scale, where 8 is the highest and 1 is the lowest. I'm going to give it a 7, right fine, which is 4.375 stars, if that's how you think of it, 87.5 out of 100, or 8.75 out of 10. This is right fine whiskey. And on that note, because I am just almost at half an hour, I'm going to quickly set that aside, quickly raise my glass, quickly say cheers.